I can see what your plan is. You want to embarrass me, right?
Let me entertain you instead.
Mind if I join you? My name is Lee Taeya.
No, Junseo, please don't say that. I know I was wrong and it won't happen again.
You're not getting in here. That's your punishment for flirting with a guy at the party and refusing to dance when I asked you.
You can't be serious
right now.
Thousand lives in every breeze. Drums that pulse, they softly tease. Time folds the stories we echoes rise. They call us near through shadowed past. The path is clear. Legend tales the heart can hear. A world reborn in every tear.
Before we continue with today's episode, I need everyone's attention for a moment because something unforgettable happened in the last comment section. Out of every voice, every opinion, every single hot take dropped into the arena, one comment rose far above the rest. Today's legendary shoutout goes to Pretty A, the one whose comment didn't just rise, it ascended. Your fire didn't just get noticed, it conquered. You brought the heat. You brought the energy. You shook the entire comment section with confidence. This spotlight, this moment, it belongs to you, Pretty A.
Echoes rise, they call us near through shadowed past. The path is clear. Legend tales the heart can hear. A world reborn in every tear.
Kim Junseo saw that Moona had stopped walking and tried to come to his senses. He couldn't understand why he was now feeling this way for someone he hated. She had smiled at him for no reason because she was confident that she had a beautiful smile. Could it be that Moona was deliberately trying to seduce him? This little vixen. He was going to teach her a lesson. He angrily got into the car and shut his side of the door while Moona turned to the other side, got on the passenger seat and put on her seatbelt. As Kim Junseo drove to the venue of the party, he thought about Choi Minji and decided that he was going to put their sexual relationship to an end. He had never been in a relationship with any woman because he had always only thought about carrying out his revenge. Women naturally threw themselves at him, but he refused to be bound to any of them. Fulfilling his needs was never a problem because he had where he picked up his women from whenever he wanted. And he preferred it that way as they were always obedient and not clingy. Not that they had a choice though because he paid them well. He only changed when Choi Minji came into his life. She was in charge of the sales and marketing department in his company. She was tall, sexy, and quite efficient at her job. When she had first shown an interest in him, he had turned her down, but she had persisted and said she didn't want any commitment or attachment. Their relationship was a mutual one where they pleasured each other whenever they had needs. Soon enough, he came to enjoy Choi Minji's company and took her along whenever he went on business trips. He had initially been happy when she informed him that she was back from her leave, as he knew that was only able to have an effect on him because he hadn't gotten laid in a while. He was initially looking forward to grabbing Choi Minji to a corner at the party and tasting her sweetness once again, but Moona's reaction earlier made him have a change of heart. He could tell that Moona so badly wanted him to have a close relationship with Choi Minji, so she could use that as an excuse to spend her time with Park Miho. He wasn't going to let that happen. He wanted Moona to suffer and not have any reason to be happy. And if he had to deprive himself of his pleasures in order to achieve that, he was going to do so. They soon arrived at the party and both Moona and Kim Junseo went inside. The moment she saw him, Choi Minji ran to Kim Junseo and hugged him passionately while acting like Moona was invisible. She tried to kiss him afterwards, but he shifted his face and said, "What are you doing, Minji?" "Stop that, I am a married man." Choi Minji stared at him in surprise, but the one who was more surprised was Moona, who stood beside him. She knew their marriage was just a ruse for him to torture her and had no real meaning or significance. What was he up to now? Kim Junseo looked at Moona and asked, "What are you waiting for? Keep moving." Turning to Minji, who was now feeling embarrassed, he said, "Let's go, Minji." They all went in together and Moona watched as Kim Junseo greeted a few people familiarly. She noticed that Minji stuck to his side and clearly wondered the nature of their relationship. She had been hopeful that Minji had Kim Junseo's heart, but seeing the way Kim Junseo acted earlier made her have doubts. She decided to be friendly towards Minji so she could find out more about her relationship with Kim Junseo. However, when she smiled at Minji, she stared at her angrily and blinked her eyes. Muna wondered why Minji reacted that way. Could Kim Junseo have told her to do so? Or did she consider her a threat to her relationship? Either way, she decided to mind her business like Kim Junseo had warned. She knew nothing about their relationship, so it was best for her to act this way. She was feeling quite weak and her temperature was still high. She decided to sit down and left Junseo and Minji together. There were so many people at the party and they were all drinking, eating, and laughing. Most of the men had a female partner by their side. Muna also noticed that Minji was by Junseo's side. Her arm was hooked around his, and they both held glasses of wine which they drank from. Minji was very beautiful. She has a sexy figure and was tall. She looked so perfect with her makeup and red gown that Muna could not disagree that she suited Kim Junseo well. They looked like the perfect couple and Muna knew that if she stood with them, she would seem like the third wheel. A waiter offered her a glass of drink, but she declined it politely. As she sat by herself, a young handsome guy who assumed she was alone came close to her and said, "Hi." The last thing Muna wanted was to share a conversation with some guy, but because she didn't know how to be rude, she politely said, "Hi." The guy asked, "Mind if I join you?" Without allowing Muna to reply, he sat down beside her and said, "My name is Lee Taeyang." Muna flashed him a smile without saying her name because she was hoping that he would take that as a hint and realize she wasn't interested in having a conversation with him. However, he continued to speak. "You seem to be all by yourself." "I know, I also feel bored whenever I go to a party alone." Muna wanted to tell him that she wasn't alone but decided against it when she saw that Minji's arm was still hooked around Junseo's. If she said she came with Kim Junseo, he would think she was pathetic and look for more reasons to speak to her, so she just kept quiet. From where he stood, Kim Junseo noticed when Muna smiled at Lee Taeyang and the smile on his own face disappeared. Did she think he brought her here to enjoy herself and flirt with men? He freed his arm from Minji and walked toward the chair. Just when Lee Taeyang decided to ask Muna about her name, Kim Junseo stood in front of them and directly asked the young man, "What are you discussing with my wife?" The guy looked at Kim Junseo in surprise and back at Muna. He stood up quickly and said, "I'm so sorry, but she didn't tell me she was married." Junseo stared at Muna and said, "I see." Lee Taeyang quickly walked away, and the look Muna saw in Junseo's eyes made her afraid. Was he feeling angry? She couldn't understand why. Their marriage wasn't real, and she didn't even do anything wrong. The worst of it was that he hated her, so why was he angry? Minji stood by a corner watching as Junseo took the place where Lee Taeyang had been and sat beside Muna. She hated Muna so much. After struggling so hard to get Junseo's attention, she had suggested that they have a sexual relationship with no strings attached because she was hopeful that Junseo would eventually fall for her and marry her. She traveled for just 2 weeks, and when she came back, Muna had taken her place. Even though Junseo claimed he hated her and only married her for revenge, the both of them lived together, and she could see that Muna was naturally beautiful. She had gone under the knife just to look the way she did, and that was the only reason why she attracted Junseo in the first place. Now with Muna's presence, Junseo's attention was going to be divided, and she knew that there was only a thin line between love and hate. She had worked too hard to just let Muna take Junseo from her. Ever since she became his sexual partner, he stopped picking up other girls and had eyes only for her. She knew he did not love her, but he desired her and always wanted her around, but today she was humiliated because of Muna's presence in his life. She looked at Muna and thought to herself, "I'm going to deal with you, Muna. I will make your life so miserable that you will regret ever getting married to my man." Junseo stared at Muna and said, "I can see what your plan is. You want to embarrass me, right?" Muna said, "No, Junseo, that's not true. He just came and sat down and began speaking to me." "Shut up," Junseo said with gritted teeth. "I clearly saw you smiling and flirting with him. Muna, even though I always called you a whore, I never knew that you truly were a loose woman. Now get up." Muna knew that no matter what she said, Junseo would still do whatever he had in mind because he was deliberately misunderstanding her. She quietly stood up without saying another word while Junseo continued, "Since you can't let other people know that you belong to me, I will help you." He leaned his back on the chair and said, "Now dance for me and make sure it is good, because I hate mediocrity." Muna turned around and noticed that a few people were now staring at her, including Lee Taeyong, who was now standing at a distance. How could she bring herself to dance? Even though there was music, no one else was dancing. Also, the bigger problem was that she wasn't feeling well. If she attempted any intense activity, she would end up falling on the ground. She kept a pitiful face and said, "Please, Junseo, have mercy on me. I made a mistake and I promise it won't happen again. I really don't feel well, please." Junseo ignored her pleas and said, "Stop making excuses because I won't be moved by them. Now go on, I'm waiting." Muna noticed that more people were now looking at her and felt very ashamed. She knew Junseo would not let her go and decided to do it. However, just as she was about to force herself to dance, Minji came and pushed her out of the way. She smiled seductively at Junseo and said, "Let me entertain you instead." Junseo stared at her with a frown on his face, but she pretended to be oblivious to it. When she had noticed that Muna was about to start dancing, she had been afraid that Kim Junseo would get turned on by her. Her jealousy got the better of her, and she ended up pushing Muna out of the way. Meanwhile, Muna felt really relieved and grateful. Even though Minji had her own motives for pushing her, she didn't mind because she had escaped a round of Junseo's torture. She slowly moved away from the chair and went to hide in a corner where Junseo couldn't see her. But she could see him clearly because she was standing. Minji knew that Junseo was unhappy with what she did, but she was confident that she would be able to change his mood. She began to whine her waist and attracted the views of so many people in the process. She went down slowly until she was sitting on Junseo's laps and proceeded to give him a lap dance. Muna shook her head from where she watched. Minji was not only beautiful but was quite bold. She would be too ashamed to perform such a dance in the presence of so many people. But she could see that Junseo enjoyed it. He closed his eyes and occasionally opened them to stare at Minji. Minji noticed the desire in Junseo's eyes and the enlarged size of the middle of his pants and instantly knew that she had accomplished the first step of her goal. She turned and whispered into his ears, "Let's take this to a more private area and let me remind you of the things I can do to you." Junseo felt his blood rush to his head. He quickly stood up and held Minji's waist in order to lead her to the restroom, but on his way, he saw Muna standing by a corner and staring at them. He felt as if a bucket of cold water was splashed on him as he recalled the decision he had made earlier in the day. He freed his hand from Minji's waist and said, "Don't do that next time, Minji. You know I'm now a married man." Minji felt really frustrated. She stared at Muna angrily. Now she was convinced that Muna was an obstacle she needed to get out of her way. Junseo may not realize that Muna already had a hold on him because he thought he was in charge. Before now, he had never changed his mind about having sex with her because it was something she always made him enjoy. Now, one look at Muna was all it took for her effort to go down the drain. No, she wasn't going to let Muna have her way. She blinked her eyes angrily at Muna once again and walked outside while Junseo gestured with his index finger for Muna to come to him. Muna was feeling afraid because she didn't know what Junseo wanted to do next. She slowly walked to where he stood, but to her surprise, he held her hand and said, "It's time to go." Muna quietly followed Junseo as he walked out of the building. She couldn't understand what was wrong with him as she had also thought he was taking Minji somewhere else to have sex with her. Why did he change his mind? Minji stood outside angrily and noticed Junseo come out. He walked past her as if she was invisible and went towards his car. Realizing that he was leaving, she ran after him and asked him to stop, but he got into his car. She stood by the window and said, "What is it, Junseo? Why are you being so cold towards me?" "It's because you interfered in my business with Muna." "If I had wanted you to dance, I would have done so, but I asked Muna." "Why did you take Muna's place? Who gave you the right to stop her from doing something I asked her to do?" Minji immediately apologized. "I'm so sorry, Junseo. I didn't know it would upset you. I thought you wanted to be entertained, and I decided to do it because I thought it would please you." "I'm sorry. Please don't push me away." Junseo stared at her for a while and calmed down. He noticed Muna walking slowly towards his car and turned to look at Minji again before saying, "You already know that I'm now a married man and I have chosen certain principles for myself. As long as I'm married to Muna, there will be no sexual activity between the both of us, so do not try to seduce me. When I have kicked Muna out of my life, we can continue our activities. For now, you can stay by my side, but you must stick to my rules." Muna saw Minji leaning towards Junseo's car and listening to him, but she ignored them and got into the car. Minji told Junseo, "I will do just as you have said. Goodbye." Junseo drove off with Muna just as she wore her seatbelt. She had no idea what they had discussed, but she could see the sadness in Minji's eyes. That didn't surprise her because most of the time, Junseo was an emotionless devil who couldn't care less about the pain of others. When they got home, Junseo parked his car and came down while Muna came down as well and walked behind him. However, when he got to the door, Junseo turned to face her and said, "You're not getting in here. That's your punishment for flirting with a guy at the party and refusing to dance when I asked you to." Muna said, "Please, Junseo. I didn't flirt with that guy and I was going to dance, but Minji pushed me out of the way." "Stop making excuses," Junseo screamed. "Quietly accept your punishment and spend the night outside here. And don't you dare sleep elsewhere otherwise. I will give you a harsher punishment." Junseo took out the keys and tried to open the door, but Muna held his arm and said, "Please, Junseo, I don't feel well. Let me come inside." Junseo flung her hand from his arm and said, "You've been saying the same thing all day. You are beginning to sound like a broken record. I bet you were also not feeling well when you chose to flirt with that guy and humiliate me. For the last time, quietly accept your punishment and stop making excuses." Junseo unlocked the door and was about to go inside when he heard a thud. He turned and saw that Muna had fainted on the ground. He laughed and said, "Really? A fainting act? I think you can do better than that." After speaking, he got into the house and locked his door. Junseo went into his bedroom and took off his clothes. After that, he entered the bathroom and began to shower. He thought about everything that happened at the party and finally how Muna had pulled a fainting act and laughed. She probably thought he would be moved by such childish tricks. She was yet to learn that Junseo was not easily fooled. After bathing, Junseo came out of the bathroom and dried his hair. He wore his pajamas and was about to go to bed, but decided to entertain himself with Muna for a while. He knew that by now she would have gotten up from the ground because she must have realized he had gone in and locked the door. She was probably in a corner crying as usual. Well, it served her right. That was what she got for trying to seduce him at first, and later trying to seduce a young guy at the party. He came out to the living room and went to the window. When he opened the curtains, he saw Muna in the same spot he had left her and was surprised. He didn't know she was that good at acting. Or could she be sick? He doubted it, but still decided to check for himself. He opened the door and rubbed his arms when the night-cold wind hit him. Standing just outside the door, he said, "Hey Muna, spoilt princess." She must be really serious with this act of hers, he thought when she did not move a muscle. He walked over to where she lay on the floor, bent down and touched her neck. He was surprised as her body temperature seemed to be around 40 degrees. He shook her and said, "Muna," but there was no response from her. "Shit," he said and ran into the house immediately to get his car keys. He quickly took his keys, locked the door, and carried Muna to the car. After laying her on the back of the car, he got into the car and drove to the hospital. As he drove, he kept looking back at Muna to see if she was still positioned well. He thought about when Muna had first told him that she wasn't feeling well. At that time, he thought she was just trying to make excuses to avoid going to the party. He never considered the possibility that she could be sick because she seemed okay to him. Even when he had asked her to dance, she said the same thing. Now he wished he had listened to her. He knew that Muna wasn't a bad person and that he was being mean to her, but that was just the price she had to pay for being a daughter of the Jacksons. Her parents were already advanced and torturing Muna was the only way he knew he could get his revenge on them. But he never wanted her to die. He planned to set her free someday, but for now, he wanted her to suffer more than his little sister had done before she died. Now that he was looking at her, all he could feel was guilt. What if he had decided to ignore her until the following morning? What would he have done if he came out and realized she was dead? He turned the heater on, but still felt chilled to his bone. He briefly looked back at Muna again and marveled at her beautiful skin. Even in this state, her simple beauty was still intact. He finally arrived at the hospital and hurriedly took Muna out of his car and into the hospital. He called for the attention of the doctor, and since he was well known and respected, the doctor quickly attended to Muna, and soon she was resuscitated. The doctor took Junseo to the side and asked him what happened to Muna. He said she just fainted when he turned his eyes away from her for a minute and asked the doctor what was wrong with her. The doctor informed him that they would find out when her test results came out. When the results came out, the doctor asked Kim Jun-seo, is she often exposed to rain or cold weather? Jun-seo quickly recalled when she ran under the rain and he locked her outside. He nodded his head and the doctor continued. She has a cold and the flu. She should have realized the symptoms earlier, so I'm wondering why you had to wait until she lost consciousness before bringing her. Aren't you her husband? Yes, I am, Jun-seo replied. The doctor stared at him for a while and continued. Usually when this virus attacks a person's body, it is easier for their partner to know due to the change in temperature, headaches, and so on. I'm going to prescribe some drugs for her which she would take when she's done with the drip. Do not let her get under the rain or in a cold environment, as these viruses thrive in such weathers and easily infect people. Jun-seo thanked the doctor and went to sit by Moona's bedside. He didn't know why he was feeling so guilty. He noticed that Moona was awake and turned to look at her. He felt more guilt-stricken when he noticed she was crying. Tears fell from the sides of her eyes while she struggled to control them. Jun-seo did not know what to say to Moona. When she saw that he was staring at her without saying anything, she wiped her eyes with her free hand and said weakly, I am so sorry, Jun-seo. Because of me, you had to disregard your sleep and come to the hospital. Please forgive me. Jun-seo couldn't take it anymore. He got up and walked out of the hospital room while Moona just stared at him. She didn't know why she saw guilt in Jun-seo's eyes. Could it be that he was regretting his actions towards her? She wished that was the case as she felt exhausted. If Kim Jun-seo could look past his hatred and anger, perhaps her days in his house would be much better until when he was willing to let her go. Jun-seo stood outside the hospital room. He felt anger in his heart, but he didn't know who to direct it at. Why was Moona like this? This was the time to accuse him and blame him for almost killing her, but she chose to apologize instead. She was making life difficult for him, and he didn't like that. Or was it all a ploy? Was Moona deliberately acting this way so she could get him to give up his revenge? If that was her plan, it wasn't going to work. He had lived his life solely for this revenge. He wished she had a brother he could have dealt with instead, but she was the only one available. Her father had already developed a partial stroke, all thanks to him, so making Moona's life miserable was the only chance he had to see his revenge to the end. It was his only chance to get justice, especially for his little sister who had been gruesomely murdered. Was Moona hoping that her stupid behavior would soften his resolve? Well, he was going to show her more pain and make her life more miserable so that she would be forced to fight back. That will be when his revenge would make him happy. Seeing her fight back would make it worthwhile, and now he was going to do everything he could to make that happen. He went back into the hospital, and the moment Moona saw him, she knew he was thinking about how to cause her more pain. She had seen that look many times in his eyes, and it always came before his attack. She closed her eyes and began to imagine that there was no Kim Jun-seo in her life. It was just her and her beloved Park Miho. If Miho were here, he would have pampered her and shown her so much care. But it would be utterly selfish of her to tell him about her present condition. There wasn't much he could do for her, so it would only cause him more pain. Also, she didn't know how Jun-seo would react this time around if he saw Miho. She had been longing to hear Miho's voice all this time, but she stopped herself from calling him because she believed it was for the best, and if Miho decided to move on with his life and find someone else, she would be undoubtedly heartbroken. But she would understand and give him her blessings. The moment the infusion bag became empty, Kim Jun-seo met the doctor and said, "Please discharge my wife. I want to take her home." The doctor looked at Moona and looked at Jun-seo in surprise. He looked at his time before looking at Kim Jun-seo again. It was already very late and Moona had not recovered completely. He wasn't going to allow Jun-seo to mistreat Moona in his presence. He now felt Kim Jun-seo must have had something to do with Moona's condition, judging by how he acted without considering her. The surprise on the doctor's face was replaced with a frown as he said, "Your wife's condition is still serious. I will have to keep her here for at least 2 more days before I can discharge her. Mr. Kim, I'm sure that whatever you might want her to do at home isn't more important than her health. Besides, it's already late. I cannot discharge her." Kim Jun-seo stared at the doctor angrily. "Moona is my wife, and only I have the right to say when she comes and goes, not you and not even her. Regardless of what you say, I am taking her home and nothing is going to stop me. I have the right to stop you in my capacity as her doctor." Jun-seo ignored the doctor and went to Moona's bed to take her. Moona felt grateful to the doctor, but she knew better than to argue with Jun-seo. She didn't want the doctor to lose his job because, with the amount of money Junseo had, he could buy the hospital and fire the doctor. Determined to stop Kim Junseo, the doctor picked up the phone and began to call the hospital's security, but Moona said, "Doctor, please come." The doctor ended the call just as the security answered. He walked over to Moona, who was already up from the bed. She said, "Thank you so much, doctor. I appreciate all you have done for me, but please, don't try to stop Junseo. I also want to go with him." The doctor stared at Moona with pity in his eyes. He knew instantly that she was in an abusive relationship. He wondered why she still stayed married to Kim Junseo despite the way he treated her. But it wasn't his business, especially since Moona had already agreed to go with Kim Junseo. Kim Junseo held Moona's hand as they left the ward, but she was walking too slowly because she felt weak all over her body and wanted to sleep. Seeing that she was making him walk slower than an old blind man, Junseo lifted Moona from the ground. As he carried her bridal style and headed to his car, Moona protested, "I can move on my own, Junseo. Please put me down." "Shut up, Moona," Junseo replied without looking at her. "Do you think I want to carry you? You are slowing me down and wasting my time unnecessarily." Moona kept quiet and didn't say another word. She was looking at Junseo's face and trying to figure out what he was thinking from his facial expression. He noticed Moona was staring at him and stopped walking. He looked at her as well, and for a moment, he was drawn by her eyes. Moona noticed that Junseo was staring at her for too long and closed her eyes. Realizing what had happened, Junseo said, "Stop staring at me with those ugly eyes of yours." Moona then decided to keep her eyes closed to avoid any further complaints from him. He placed her on the passenger seat when he got to his car, after which he turned and sat on the driver's seat through the other side. As he buckled his seatbelt, he realized Moona was struggling with hers. He bent towards her to help her with it. However, Moona raised her head right at that moment, and their lips touched. She opened her eyes in surprise while Junseo quickly pulled back as if he had been shocked by an electrical wire. Moona decided to ignore what had just happened. She wiped her lips with the back of her hands and continued struggling with the seatbelt. When Junseo saw her reaction, he scoffed, "As if you are even worthy of my kiss. Now I have to brush my teeth again before going to bed." Moona pretended not to hear what Junseo said. She finally strapped on the seatbelt, leaned the back of her head on the car seat, and slept off. Junseo drove back to his house and said, "You can get off my car now, we are home." When he realized that Moona wasn't responding, he turned and noticed that she has slept off. He looked at her and began to think of what he could do to make her lose her cool and fight back. He noticed that some strands of her hair had fallen over her face and were almost covering one of her eyes. He forgot that she was supposed to be his enemy and went closer to her face as he shifted the hair strands back. He got a close view of her face and said inwardly, "What a flawless beauty." He was still pushing some of her hair strands back when Moona opened her eyes. She became afraid when she saw Junseo's face so close to her own, but he pulled away immediately and said, "We are home, so you can get off," as he turned off the ignition and alighted from his car. He threw the keys at Moona, who was already standing at the door, but they fell on the floor because she didn't stretch out her hand quick enough. Moona bent down, picked up the key, and opened the door before going inside while Junseo just stood outside watching her. He was aghast at his behavior towards Moona. What was happening to him? He seemed to suddenly be acting foolishly around Moona. Could it be that she had cast a spell on him? He almost laughed at himself as the thought came to his mind. He knew he didn't believe in such rubbish, so what exactly was going on with him? Could it be that he had become attracted to Moona? But how could that be? She was the daughter of his enemy, and he hated her, so how could he betray his late family in this way? No, this wasn't happening to him. He was not going to let Moona succeed in her plans because he was convinced that all her actions were deliberately carried out to seduce him. He didn't like this feeling at all. He couldn't deny that Moona was beautiful, but she wasn't even his type. He had married her so confidently because he knew he would never fall for her. He liked tall, extremely curvy, and sexy women because they complemented his big and sturdy body. Moona, on the other hand, was simple-looking and petite. Although she had a nice shape, she wasn't very curvy and sexy. She had a beautifully childish face and attractive skin, but that was just about it. As he locked his door and went into his room, Kim Junseo blamed his reaction to Moona on not having been laid. He decided he would have to do something about Moona and finally came up with an idea before closing his eyes with his face on his bed. Moona woke up feeling a lot better than she did the previous day. After returning from the hospital last night, she had been so weak that she went straight to her bed without bothering to change her clothes or even take a hot bath. She thought about everything that happened yesterday and shook her head. Kim Junseo was certainly going to be the death of her. She needed to take the drugs the doctor had prescribed for her, but before then she needed to eat. She quickly brushed her teeth and took a hot bath, after which she put on a simple gown, tied her hair, and went into the kitchen. She noticed that Junseo was cooking and was very shocked. With his huge size, no one would expect that he knew how to cook. But was he cooking for just himself or both of them? When he had been dead drunk, she had made herbal soup for him. Could it be that he was trying to return the favor and cook for her because she was sick? Moona knew that Junseo would never do something that nice for her, but what if he were? Her opinion of him would change drastically, and she would accept that beneath the strong exterior lay a man who was good and kind. Kim Junseo felt someone else's presence in the kitchen and turned. He saw Moona standing by the door and ignored her. She greeted him just as he passed by her with a plate of food in his hand. He ignored her greeting, but Moona did not mind because she had gotten used to his snobbish attitude. The food on his plate looked so delicious that Moona could not help but salivate. She went closer and saw that he had left everything he used in cooking dirty, and now she had to wash them. She wanted to know what his food tasted like, so she opened the pot but was surprised to find it empty. She realized he had only cooked the portion that he wanted to eat and thought, "What a selfish man." She washed all the utensils and prepared a light meal. She was also tempted to cook just what would be enough for her, but she knew that she was the one who wanted peace while he wanted war. So, she had to be the bigger person. She made enough for the whole house and dished the one she wanted to eat at the moment. She was still at the dining eating when Kim Junseo came out all set for work. Moona found herself staring at him and couldn't help but agree that he was very hot. His face was perfectly chiseled, and it complemented his tall, sexy body, which was fat-free. He was undoubtedly a handsome man, but Moona wished his heart was as good as his face. She smiled at him as he walked away and said, "Have a nice day," but he ignored her until when he got to the door. He turned and looked in her direction before saying, "I believe you at least know how to bake a cake. Minji will be here later with some ingredients. I want you to prepare a perfect and delicious cake. You already know I have high standards. There will be a party later today, and I don't want to hear any complaints." After speaking, Kim Junseo opened the door and left without bothering to know if Moona had anything to say. Choi Minji's friends wanted to host a welcome back party for her, so Kim Junseo decided to use the opportunity to torture Moona. He told her to hold the first part of the party in his house before finally moving it to the club. Minji had been so happy when Junseo told her that because she had been looking for an opportunity to put Moona down. Moona put her hands on her head in frustration. Kim Junseo knew that she was still sick, yet he wanted her to bake a party cake. Couldn't he have spared her this one day? Even though she felt better today than she did yesterday, her body was still not strong and she needed to get as much rest as possible. The doctor had even advised that. With the kind of money Kim Junseo had, he could order even the best cake from any part of the world if he wanted. Why did he have to ask her to bake a cake and still talk about high standards when he knew she wasn't a pâtissier? After eating, she went to her room and took her drugs before waiting for Minji. She knew Minji didn't like her as she had made it very obvious at the party, so she wasn't looking forward to meeting her. On the contrary, she felt anxious. Minji could be Junseo's spy for all she knew. It wasn't like she didn't know how to bake a cake. She had learned it when she took up cooking classes in Incheon. However, she had never done it on a professional level. She always baked for Miho, her friends, and sometimes her parents, whenever they went to visit her. She hoped that the cake was going to turn out well because she didn't want to get into any fight with Kim Junseo, especially today. She waited anxiously until her palms began to feel sweaty. When she had almost thought that Junseo was playing a prank on her, she heard the sound of the doorbell and realized that Minji had arrived. Moona opened the door for Minji, and she came in with different bags in her hands. She went to the center of the living room and dropped the bags. Looking at her time, she said, "I will be back in an hour for the cake. Make sure it's delicious." After speaking, she turned and walked away. She stopped when she got to the door and said, "Don't forget, you have 1 hour." Moona quietly watched as Minji left and shook her head. 1 hour to bake a party cake? Were these people even humans? Junseo claimed he loved his little sister so much, yet he treated someone else's sister like an animal. Anyways, she believed that it wouldn't always be like this. One day, Things were going to change for her and her life would become better. She was sure of that. She lifted the bags into the kitchen and took out their contents one after the other. The flour was so much that Muna realized that Junseo wanted her to bake a really big cake in such a short time. She tried to double her speed and worked as fast as she could. She did her best with the cake and checked the time when she was through. It took her more than 1 hour. Minji had emphasized that she would be here in an hour, but Muna could not understand why she was not here already. She knew the delay benefited her, but she was feeling body pains because she had overworked herself. She went into her room and slept. She ended up sleeping for a long time, but felt a lot better when she woke up. She checked the time and saw that it was more than 4 hours since Minji had first come. She wondered if Minji had deliberately told her that she needed the cake in an hour so she could make her stress herself. It didn't matter anyway because she had gotten enough beauty rest and was feeling so much better. She waited for Minji, who still didn't show up until 3 hours later. She came in the company of 9 girls, and they all entered the house chatting and laughing. They ignored her, who had opened the door for them, and went to sit on the chairs one after the other. Muna knew that Minji would not act without Junseo's consent, so she decided to ignore them and go into her room. However, Minji called out to her and asked, "Where do you think you are going to?" Junseo said, "You are supposed to serve our drinks and make sure we are entertained, so bring out the drinks and glasses, and the cake as well." Muna sighed. Without arguing, she went to the wine cabinet and took out different types of wine for them. After that, she cleaned the glass cups and gave them to them. One of the girls stared at her disdainfully and said, "Why is Junseo's maid so slow? Does he pay her to act like a snail?" Minji talked to Junseo to fire her and get a better maid. "You know he always listens to you." Minji smiled and replied, "I would surely do that." Muna felt like laughing. They all felt she would be angered by their words. If only they knew how much she wanted to be away from Kim Junseo, they would know that what they were saying made her happy. Junseo treated her like his maid, there was no doubt about that. And she had decided to let him do so because she wanted to change him, but if one day he got tired of his maid and fired her, she would be the happiest woman in the world. Muna stood by the side waiting until Minji asked her to bring the cake. She brought out the cake in a tray and placed it on the dining. Minji walked closer to her and said, "Wow, Muna, to be honest, I doubted you in the beginning, but after seeing this, I am thoroughly convinced by you. What a lovely cake. I have to taste it." Muna heaved a sigh of relief and said to herself that she had at least dodged a bullet from Kim Junseo. However, the moment Minji tasted the cake, she screamed and said, "What is this? It tastes like shit." Muna knew that Minji was deliberately acting because she knew the cake was very delicious. She had wondered why Minji praised her earlier and had almost changed her perception of her, but now she knew that Minji was just like Junseo. They deserved each other. She resisted the urge to ask Minji if she had ever tasted shit before. She decided to play along and apologize for her bad cooking skills. However, Minji lifted the tray with her hands and smashed the cake on her face. Muna screamed as some of the contents got into her eyes. The remaining part of the cake and tray fell on the floor. Minji's friends laughed when Muna began to scream, but Minji had an angry expression on her face as she said, "Girls, let's go to the club. My party has been ruined by this tiny bitch." Minji's friends got up, and they all left while Muna slowly wiped the cake off her eyes until she was able to see a little. She managed to get to her room and wipe her face clean with some wipes. Meanwhile, the moment Minji left Junseo's house, she called him and began to cry on the phone. "What happened to you?" Junseo asked. "It's that Muna," Minji replied. "The cake she made was so horrible that none of us could even bear to taste it. I'm sure she deliberately made it taste bad, so I would get mad. I merely asked her why the cake tasted so bad despite the fact that she had the whole day to make it, but she became angry and smashed the cake on my face." Junseo was shocked. He had done worse things to Muna and she didn't respond. Why would she do a thing like that just because Minji asked her a question? "Did Muna really smash the cake on your face?" Junseo asked. "Yes, she did," Minji replied. "My eyes are all red from trying to get the cake out. You can ask my girls who were there if you are doubting me. I would have taken a picture or a video to show you, but it would have been too embarrassing for me. I would have asked my friends to beat her up for what she did, but I respect you, and that's the only reason why I quietly walked out of your house. Do not worry, I am going to deal with her," Junseo assured Minji. He angrily left his office and began driving back home. It seemed Muna was tired of being the peacemaker. He was going to teach her a lesson. After wiping her face, Muna returned the bottles of wine that hadn't been opened in the cabinet and poured out the rest. She scooped the cake off the floor and put it in the trash, washed and returned the glass cups before mopping the floor. When she was done, she decided to take her bath. She locked the door of her room and went into the bathroom. Her eyes still hurt, and as she thought of everything, she couldn't help but cry. If it weren't because she didn't want Kim Junseo to take out his anger on her parents, someone like Minji would never have gotten away with what she did. But she knew that Minji was acting under Junseo's orders. And even if she was not, Junseo would still take her side because he was in favor of anything that caused her pain. Kim Junseo parked his car and angrily tried to open the door. He realized it was locked and took out the spare key from his pocket and opened the door. He noticed Muna wasn't in the living room or kitchen, so he knew she must be in her room. He decided to give her a fright as the first part of her punishment. He kicked her door angrily, and it opened at once. Incidentally, Muna was wiping her body when Junseo kicked open her door. She dropped her towel in fright and instinctively turned towards the door. When she saw Junseo, she screamed and ran back into the bathroom. Junseo stood by Muna's door in surprise. The last thing he had expected was to see her naked. What made it worse was the fact that he couldn't take his eyes off of her until she ran into the bathroom. He closed the door, knowing he would have to change the locks because he had destroyed it. He sat on the couch and tried to will his mind to think of something else because he knew that the memory of Muna being unclad was going to haunt him for a while. Muna remained in the bathroom, afraid to come out until she heard Junseo close her door. She couldn't understand why he acted like he was mentally unstable sometimes. She couldn't trust his intentions, so she slowly opened the door and quickly ran to the bed to pick up the clothes she had already picked out to wear, after which she ran back into the bathroom to wear her clothes. After collecting her emotions, Muna came out of the room and saw Junseo sitting on the couch. She wanted to ask him why he felt the need to kick her door but decided against it. When he saw her, Junseo stood up to speak and the scene from earlier flashed into his mind, making it difficult for him to remember what he wanted to say. He noticed Muna's eyes were very red. Even when she cried, it wasn't always like this. He stared at her for a while before asking, "Why are your eyes so red?" Muna wondered if he was asking because he didn't know or if he just wanted to mock her. She frowned and said, "When I served Minji the cake, she claimed it tasted like shit and smashed it on my face. Some of the particles got into my eyes and that's why they are red." Junseo looked at her in surprise and finally realized that Minji had lied to him. She knew how much he hated being lied to. Did she take him for a fool? Muna tried her best, but couldn't keep silent about what Junseo had done, so she said, "I really don't know why you felt the need to kick open my bedroom door, and I'm quietly tolerating everything you do to me because I want peace, but that does not give you the right to act the way you did today. Please respect my privacy, Junseo. That's all I ask." After speaking, Muna turned to leave, but Junseo stopped her and said, "I have an important conference to attend in 2 days' time, so pack your bags. We are going to Busan very early tomorrow." Kim Junseo left after speaking, but he felt angry. He knew he should be happy that Minji caused Muna pain, but the look in Muna's eyes when she spoke about respecting her privacy kept tugging at his heart. He called Minji immediately and said, "I want to meet you right away. Tell me where you are at." Minji was so excited that Junseo was coming to her that she forgot about what had happened in his house earlier on. She touched up her makeup and waited for him to arrive at the club. Kim Junseo, however, refused to go in and asked Minji to come out and meet him. The moment he saw Minji, he became convinced that she had lied to him. She smiled seductively at Junseo, who had come out of his car, but she realized his mood wasn't pleasant. She recalled that he had gone back home to deal with Muna and wondered if she had made him upset. She was about to ask him why he had an angry look on his face when he said, "I asked you to torture Muna by making her bake a large cake. Why did you smash it on her face? More importantly, how dare you lie to me? What do you take me for?" Minji realized that Junseo had discovered the truth and said, "I'm so sorry. I thought it would make you happy if I smashed the cake on her face, and I only lied to you because I figured you were looking for a reason to punish her and wanted to make it easier for you." Junseo observed her for a while and said, "I won't say this again, Minji. Don't try to make decisions for me and only do what I ask you to do. If you feel I'm giving you too many rules, you are free to walk out the door." "No, Junseo, please don't say that," Minji begged. "I know I was wrong and it won't happen again. I have no complaints about you, so I'm not going anywhere." "All right then, you can go back to your party," Junseo said as he got into his car. Minji held the door before he closed it and asked, "Do I still get to follow you to Busan?" "Please don't change your mind, Junseo." "I haven't changed my mind," he replied. "Pack whatever you wish to take with you because we leave tomorrow at 7. Minji breathed a sigh of relief as Junseo drove away. She had been so scared that he would stop her from going with him. He had always taken her along whenever he went for his meetings and conferences outside the country. He had told her so many times how he enjoyed her company during these periods because she kept his bed warm and his nights were not lonely. This time around, she was very hopeful about an improvement in their relationship. Even though Junseo had said that he was married and nothing could happen between them for now, she wasn't willing to give up. This trip was going to be her opportunity to make Junseo hers once again and remind him of how much he was really depriving himself of by trying to be a typical faithful husband. Muna went back into her room. She wasn't surprised that Junseo did not apologize for barging in on her while she was naked. From what her mom had told her, Junseo's parents died when he was still a boy, so whoever raised him did a pretty bad job of it. How could he be so insensitive? He knew she wasn't well, yet he made her overwork herself, and her payment in the end was a face smashed with cake. As if that wasn't bad enough, he kicked open her door like a robber and barged in on her privacy. She finally called out his bad behavior, and all he could do was ask her to pack her bags for Busan. He probably had more wicked tricks up his sleeves, and she was definitely going to be at the receiving end. Why did she have to go with him on this trip? Couldn't he take his precious Minji along? She didn't even feel well enough to travel, but she knew that she didn't have a choice in this matter. Kim Junseo had made his decision and most certainly his plans as well, so all she could do was follow quietly. She decided to put a call across to her parents and inform them of her trip. She called her father's line, but her mom was the one who answered the call. She put it on speaker so Muna's father could hear her voice as well. Muna felt like crying when her mom asked how she was faring.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, like, share and comment below.